Life is unfair. This world is brutal, and there will always be times where things don't go the way we planned, the way we wanted. Life is full of surprises and can sometimes leave us in a deep, deep despair. It's sad, even terrifying to know that what we have now can so very easily be ripped away from us. That fragility, that mortality, is something I think Arcane conveys more beautifully than any other piece of media I've seen. This is a story of duality, of relationships, but most importantly, it's a tale of two sisters. Vi and Powder are perfect siblings, upon first glance. They have unconditional love for one another, where Vi is always concerned with Powder's safety and never wants to push any blame on her. Powder sees her sister as the perfect role model, the person she wants to be. Powder wants nothing more than to be loved and accepted by everyone, but Vi most of all. Their relationship is shown so organically, and with such sincerity that it makes the thought of losing that relationship so dreadful. We want them to be happy. We want to see them succeed. We're shown the terrible life people in the Undercity have to go through, contrasted with Powder's purity and innocence. All we want is for Vi to be there for her, to protect her. However, Powder's absolute dependence on Vi is by far her worst flaw. She loves her sister so much that she couldn't bear the thought of losing her, or even worse, being abandoned by her. We see the seeds of this when Vi leaves her to go after Vander. This breakdown scene may be jarring or even confusing at first, as it doesn't seem in line with what we've seen of Powder's character so far. It's strange to go from this sweet, innocent little girl to seeing her have this violent, ugly tantrum. But that's just it. The Powder we've seen so far has done everything for Vi's love and approval. She's lived her entire life dependent on this one person, and is then rejected by them. She's abandoned, and just like how any child would react to losing someone they hold dear, Powder loses it. However, in this moment, rather than accepting defeat, Powder decides to fight back, and these are the seeds of what she would later become. She chases after them with nothing but the desire to be needed, to be useful, because to Powder, uselessness means abandonment. This makes it all the more heartbreaking to know that she just wanted to help. The final scene of Act 1 epitomizes tragedy. This scene is so heartrending because nobody is at fault. While it's obvious that Powder is just a child and she doesn't fully understand that actions can have consequences, Vi, who is just a teenager, has just witnessed her entire family die right before her eyes. She is completely overwhelmed with pain and all sorts of emotions that she allows herself to unleash these feelings onto the first person that she sees, Powder, her sister. The one person she would do anything for, the person she was going to turn herself in for, the person she was willing to fight for, the one person she never wanted to hurt. And as she looks down at her hand, she remembers what Vander told her. To fight will only lead to loss. Ironic how it was by her own hand that she lost the one person most dear to her. We see Vi walk away, seemingly to just cool off. But to Powder, this is the realization of her worst fear. Abandonment. For real this time. The only person she needed acceptance from left her all alone, and so when Silco finds her completely by herself, Powder latches onto the closest thing to her, anything to ease that pain of abandonment, and when Silco hears this, he sympathizes. The reveal of Jinx is incredibly epic and bombastic, almost making us happy for her as she's now incredibly competent and useful just like she's always wanted. But quickly, we begin to understand just how much has changed. Gone is the innocent little girl we saw in Powder. Now she is a deranged, deadly weapon used for Silco's empowerment. That relationship between Vi and Powder is ripped away from the audience, leaving us eager to see them reunited. Throughout Act 2, that is the driving force behind these characters' motivations. And so, when it finally does happen, and these two long-lost sisters finally get to see each other again, we receive a moment of catharsis. As Vi embraces her sister for the first time in years, Jinx reverts back to Powder. However, Jinx quickly takes over again, and just as Vi was ripped away from Powder, now Powder is ripped away by Jinx. When Vi sees what Powder has become, she tries to push it away and pretend not to see Jinx, but rather the innocent little girl she grew up with. Vi and the audience are put in the same position. We can't fathom what Powder has become, and want nothing more than things to go back to the way they were. But life isn't fair. Loss is a part of life, and Vi has to struggle with the reality that Powder is gone, and all that's left are embers in the blazing inferno that is Jinx. Nearly every character in Arcane is a victim of circumstance, positioned in the wrong place at the worst time, and yet none of it feels fake. Everything feels organic, like it was meant to be, except it wasn't. Victor's disease is anything but natural. His body is slowly deteriorating, which pushes him to do anything just to keep himself alive. Jinx is the complete opposite of who Powder was. This wasn't how things should have gone, but they did anyway. Even the setting for our characters is an immense factor for what happens in the story. It was the Undercity's harsh environment and wide-scale poverty that led Vi to steal from Piltover. Vi feels as though she deserves better, and to a degree, she does. These characters never asked to be born into the Undercity. It's not their fault they were orphaned at such a young age. It's not their fault the world treats them like trash. And yet, it's everyone's fault for the creation of Jinx. Blame is a polarizing thing, and Arcane never tries to pin blame on any one character. Everyone had a part to play in the creation of Jinx. Milo's constant bullying, Silco's encouragement of Jinx and lack of boundaries for her, Vi's decision to leave Powder when she likely needed her most, and Powder's complete overdependence on Vi. Everyone is to blame. And so, in some twisted sense, nobody's to blame. These things came to fruition due to very small actions taken by everyone. Nobody can control everything by themselves. The world will always keep turning, no matter what we do or say, because life is just that unfair.